Yeah. Yeah, the service is really fast too. Some folks, and they like bring you while you're eating first round, they bring you a snack.
Right. All right, if everyone can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Kaminsky, if you can lead us, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Everyone, you may be seated. We are here today for a public hearing, just as we were on Wednesday evening relative to the New York Voting Rights Act and actions taken under that. I'm going to pass it over to the clerk to read the meeting notice.
First, we're going to take roll call.
Sure.
Supervisor, Councilmember Barbara Bukowski. Here. Councilmember, excuse me, Councilmember Michael Jazinski.
Here.
Councilmember Gerald Kaminsky.
Present.
Councilmember Brian Pilarski.
Present.
Councilmember Vernon Thompson.
Here.
Supervisor Brian Noah.
Present.
Everybody is present. As the supervisor has stated, on February 5th, there was a special meeting held by the town board in relation to resolution 2024-50 in relation to the New York Voting Rights Act that was submitted to the town. As required, we are to have two public hearings. One was held on Wednesday, the other is today. Open for public comment for anybody to come and speak in person, or you could submit your concerns or your feelings online to town clerk webmail. A few were received and they were forwarded to the town board for review. All right.
Right. With that, the way this is going to work this morning is we have a sign-up sheet right next to the podium. If you'd like to speak, please sign up there. We're going to give each speaker 5 minutes, and the board will extend time or waive time limits depending on circumstances. The goal here is to hear everybody for as long as they need to speak their piece. Before we get to the public comments, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Spitzer. He can make an introduction.
Good morning, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, and of the public. My name is Daniel Spitzer, along with my colleague Cheyenne Freely of Hodson Russ. We're special counsel to the town in regard to the complaint that was submitted to you under the New York Voting Rights Act. The New York Voting Rights Act is designed to address potential situations of racially discriminatory voting within the town. We received a complaint from Mr. Ken Young alleging that the elections were racially polarized based on the results of the most recent election. The town hired 2 experts. The experts' reports have been posted. When you examine the issue of racially polarized voting and violations of the law, there are 2 separate things you're looking at. One is racially polarized voting, which is determined based on statistics, looking at various elections. Local elections are more important than state elections. Recent elections are more important than older elections, and so on. So we're looking at what's going on in Cheektowaga. And as you address that, you also have to look at, was there instances of discrimination based on a separate category called the totality of circumstances. There you look at the ability of persons of color to get elected. You look at protected classes in terms of employment and educational history. You look at various things. Should you determine, based on the reports that have been submitted by both your experts and Mr. Young's expert and other evidence you receive at these hearings, that there is racially polarized voting or under the totality of circumstances there's been a violation, there are a number of remedies that you can consider. The particular original complaint requested that you consider 2 remedies: term limits and changing to a district system. The law itself provides courts with authority to do a number of systems. Both of the term limits is not listed, but at large, replacing at large with district systems is. The law also suggests a number of other systems, such as alternative voting systems, such as ranked voting or cumulative voting or other systems. The law also notes that the one way that you could potentially address these issues is to have the dates of voting changed to coincide with state law, with state elections to increase turnout. And in fact, that has occurred. The state legislature has done so. So these are all the things you need to consider as you hear things. If in fact you choose a remedy of that district, we have ability to work with the Attorney General to place a remedy in place. We have other abilities. Should you not take action, there is the ability of Mr. Young or others to bring lawsuits. We hope to avoid that. And really, you're just here to listen and learn from the people as to what they feel about this situation. Happy to answer any questions I can for you. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you and start to hear.
Any questions? All right, all set, thank you. And with that, we are going to move on to the public comment section. Our first speaker on the list this morning is Reverend Eugene Pierce. Podium is yours.
First, let me say it's an honor to be speaking before this honorable body this morning. Going back August 15th of 1977, as I spoke before the body at that time, I was jailed. I was thrown in jail because I objected to the fact that in the town of Cheektowaga, there was no Black employees. After being told by Supervisor Kenneth Myers that there's never been a Black employee in this town and never will. And if I continue to complain, I would go to jail. I stood here, not in this area, but over at the town hall, and I spoke about, because what happened was a youngster, 15-year-old John Crawford, applied for a summer job, and he was denied. And I went to Supervisor Myers, and I said it was not right. An individual should be able to work for the town based on two characteristics. That's the individual's character and ability, and it was not right. So I asked to be placed on the agenda. Supervisor Myers would not do that. I stood up and I spoke as I'm doing now, only to be thrown in jail, having to go before the courts, eventually paying $250 fine, and my 15 days in jail was eliminated. A sad time. 47 years later, I'm back here to speak before this honorable body that I pray is different than what it was on August the 15th, 1977. With me is my wife. We just celebrated our 65th wedding anniversary. Praise the Lord. She was with me the day when I went to jail. And while I was in jail, at the lockup, someone threw an incendiary device through the window of my house. I thank the Lord that my house was not burned down at that time. Do we have a different situation and a different mindset here today? I pray we do. Two important elements. One is we should have a voice and a vote. There are areas in Cheektowaga that's heavy minority. There's no voice and no vote, which is a shame. The other thing is, in the 54 years I've been a resident in Cheektowaga, living at 68 West Toulon Drive, I've tried to contact my council persons for action or to address situations. I have never been able to contact my council person. Why? Because all the elections is town-wide. It should be district-wide. There should be one voice and one vote. We do not have it now. Two situations. One is it gives the appearance that the council person is shirking their duties. No one up here is responsible for a district. That's a shame. The other is the absence of one voice, one vote. So I pray to you that in your heart, you want to do the right thing, not to have to go to court to get a judge to say, do the right thing, not to have to go to the feds like I had to do in 1977. And they found, and when I said they, the federal government found the town of Cheektowaga guilty and stipulated if integration didn't happen, the town would lose initially $560,000. We don't need that anymore. Cheektowaga is better. Cheektowaga is better. Thank you for hearing me. And if you have any questions of me, I would like to answer them.
This morning's only a public hearing. I appreciate your comment. I have your card. I'd like to give you mine at the end. We can talk more.
God bless you. Thank you.
Sorry?
Nothing.
Next speaker is Sandy Prisblack.
Morning, I'm Sandy Prisblack. I reside at 132 Roland Street in the Village of Sloan. Excuse me. I'm going to first read to you the comment that I submitted to Kim, and then I have a little bit to add after watching these hearings online. I am commenting in support of a voting system in Cheektowaga, New York. I believe the 2023 Town Council election result statistics demonstrate that voters who reside in the northwest corner of our town, where the population density is the highest for marginalized communities of color, and where Kenneth Young received the most votes, were denied representation on the board. But due to our at-large system of voting for council members, Mr. Young came in last when the, pardon me, when the votes of the entire town were tabulated. On a personal note, I ran for town council twice in 2017 and then again in 2019. At that time, and until the 2023 election cycle, Brian Nowak was the only sitting council member who resided west of Harlem Road in the entire town. I brought that to the attention of the residents during my campaigns, many of which were very concerned about the lack of representation on the board for issues specific to our neighborhoods. And I'm talking neighborhoods now, not race, neighborhoods. I was part of a petitioning effort in the summer of 2018 to change Cheektowaga from an at-large system to a ward system. I believe that had we been able to gather enough signatures to have a referendum vote by the residents of Cheektowaga, perhaps we would have a ward system today, or perhaps not. But either way, it should be up to the voters of Cheektowaga to decide. And I'm just going to add to that. And also, in addition to be up to the voters of Cheektowaga, then I don't want the board to overturn it. At their next meeting, which has happened in 2 times in history, as far as I have gathered from some things that Mr. Boric has stated. That's it. I think that it's the fair way to go. I'm all for a ward system. And that's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Next speaker, writing's a little tough here. D Mark. Okay. Seeing no one, we'll circle back on that. Next, after that, Ted Morton.
There we go. Finally started the clock. All right. I've lived in town for 42 years, and quite honestly, up until several years ago, I never thought of the ward system, the district system, whatever. It seemed to be something in places where I didn't live, primarily in cities. Never had a problem reaching any elected officials, whatever. And in hindsight now, I could see, because the first 35 years I lived in South Cheektowaga along Transit and French. So that's where most of the elected officials would live. Now I live at the opposite end, Genesee and Transit area. So again, maybe because I'm friends with some of you folks, I've never had a problem reaching out. Several years ago, I'm not sure if it was yourself, Supervisor Nowak, whatever, but someone came out with the petitions to create a ward or district system. Again, I don't know if you initiated or it was someone on the board at that time, I can't remember. So it got me thinking about the whole process. And I carried petitions at that time. And I can't remember if we needed 2,000, 3,000 signatures within a certain number of days, where I believe it failed, so it died. In recent weeks, I have been able to find out that in the past, since World War II, there have been several attempts, almost always in the past, to bring district and wards to this town. Nothing to do with race at that time. The people at that time thought it was a good thing, an equitable thing. Because in the 60s and early 70s, I believe the town population peaked at 125,000. It was like a small city. And cities generally have wards and districts. It was defeated every time. One time it actually passed, and a few months later, it was overturned by the board. And the thing that struck me when I found this was that at the time, of the 3 times in the past, it was the Republicans on the board that wanted to bring districts and wards. It was the Democrats that refused to do it. So as a Republican, I guess that made me proud once I saw, especially in recent weeks, what's been going on. And, you know, something that the Reverend said, it's a travesty what happened in 1977. Hopefully we're in a different era. Some people think that, believe it, some people don't. But hopefully we're in a different era, but there's no excuse for that. Absolutely no excuse. So I guess finishing up, I want to be put on record the fact that if I carried the petition several years ago for wards and districts, it would be very hypocritical of me to change that. So I am in favor of a ward or district system in the town of Cheektowaga. Thank you all.
Next up is Brent Rallius. Did I got that last name correct?
Rollins.
Rollins. All right. And then,
Peace and love, everybody.
Peace and love.
I'm going to be brief. I just have a couple of bullet points I want to relate to you. I wrote down this morning, we reside in an economic and culturally diverse municipality. Our communities would be better served by district, precinct, or ward elected representatives. These representatives would be tasked with the voicing of the concerns of the neighborhoods, concerns such as policing, building and code enforcement, infrastructure, and other quality of life issues. We need to change things today for a better tomorrow. Basically, that's all I have to say about that, which means I'm in support of having districts, wards, or whatever else you might want to call it. I would, if you allow me to say one more thing. A young lady was killed on the 33 Expressway this week. It was reported that she fell out of a window in a moving vehicle. Now, my understanding and my observation, the current models or recent models of automobiles have very small windows, or they cannot be opened all the way. So briefly, without going into details, I think this demands further investigation. And I would like it for, be taken under consideration. If it's in your power to implement that or have it done, that would be good. If not, anyone else in the audience who may have some input or something to say about that or help in that situation, thank you so much. I've spoken, appreciate it. Peace and love again, everybody.
thank you, Mr. Rollins. Our last speaker on the sign-up sheet is Gary Bork. I'd like to make a motion to waive the time for Mr. Bork. Second?
Yeah.
Second from Councilmember Bukowski, all in favor?
All right.
All right.
I'll try and keep it within the 5 minutes. First, I wanted to clear up something only because I think the news made an incorrect report, and you listen to your attorney, I'll tell you what my client and I believe. We don't think this June 10th date, whatever that was reported in the news, is of any relevance. In fact, my view of the matter is that you only had until February 2nd to enact the safe harbor provision. There's no provision in the law for doing it later. So it's my position that if Ken Young wanted to commence a lawsuit today, he could. He doesn't want to. He wants to try and resolve this outside of the courthouse. And hopefully you'll be able to proceed with all due speed to get to a resolution of some sort. Second, the law also provides that he can commence an action if he's within 120 days of any election. We have a primary election coming up June 25th. 120 days before that would be February 29th. So that's the target date we're looking at. We're hoping you can come and complete this resolution, which we don't think qualifies anyways, but we hope you'll add to it with the remedies, proposed remedies and the timeline. After the close of these hearings, you'll be able to do that before the 29th, so we won't have to consider going to court. But what I wanted to add too, on the issue of the alternative elements, not the racially polarized voting, but the discriminatory elements. I've only been an observer in that. Of course, I don't feel it. I don't get the impact. Doesn't affect me. But I remember when I first moved to Cheektowaga 13 years ago, I was kind of piqued at the idea that all along the border of Cheektowaga, we had checkpoints every now and then. Genesee Street, Pine Street, Walton Ave. People coming into Cheektowaga from the city apparently were considered a problem. And when I looked into the history of that, and that was down in 2010, I found that in 2001, our district attorney, Frank Clark, was concerned about the inordinate amount of arrest of Black people in the town of Cheektowaga with regard to traffic infractions. He said it didn't make any sense given the numbers at the time. And then I look back further and I see that, and this is maybe because of the Reverend's work, that I think it was in 1981, the town entered into a affirmative action plan to try to address some of the problems regarding discrimination in hiring. So this town has a long history of problems with race relations. I'm not going to say it's because of races, but it's because of race relations, and I think that needs to be paid attention to also. Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, may I add one thing? This board and myself are not the source of that date. I agree with Mr. Borak on the timing. There is specific provisions when an election's coming up that you can move up the date, potentially file a lawsuit. In fact, I shared with you Mr. Borak's email where he told us that he was immediately filing for an injunction in mandamus to take this opportunity away from you and have the courts take over. I responded to him that should this board should be allowed to finish the vetting process. The public should be allowed to input. And in fact, if you put in a district system, the law requires that that not be done in a vacuum, that there be a public hearing on the district maps. I asked him specifically, did he have proposed maps? I haven't received anything yet. Did he have any other way of moving this forward quickly? He did not. As I mentioned to you, and as I mentioned this morning, the Attorney General can assist you if you wish to move expeditiously. So that offer remains open. Mr. Borak has also requested to meet with the board as I forwarded it on to you. So, but he is correct about the timing. It is not the June date so that the public, I appreciate him correcting that so the public is aware that that's not the timeline, and it's certainly not the timeline we've been working on. Thank you for letting me take the opportunity to straighten out the record, sir.
Do you have any others in the audience that'd like to sign up for the public hearing relative to the topic before us? There's a sign-in sheet right next to the podium, Ken.
Morning, board members. As you know, my name is Kenneth Young. I am the plaintiff for this actions here today. I'm going to be brief. My comments are basically is that from the very start, what I've been saying is that our side of town, the Northwest End, has not been represented well. You can come in that neighborhood, you can look around, you can see what's going on in our neighborhoods. It's not about me. This is not about me being elected seated in this town. It's about communities. We need our communities to be well represented. And right now we're not. I received a few things online. I'm gonna read you for one thing that someone is saying about me. It says, I believe the candidate lost the election twice by not running good campaigns either time. There are many reasons for not getting the votes he needed to get elected. I just don't understand that thought pattern, that thinking, because I was on the Democratic line the second time here. I got a lot of votes out of North Cheektowaga. I was on the Democratic line with the rest of the Democratic committee. I fell off over that way. Why? Why did I fall off in South Cheektowaga as opposed to North Cheektowaga? I just want to be sure that you understand that we all need to be counted. We all need to be represented. Again, neighborhoods in the Northwest End, they're falling, people. They're falling down. And if my tax bases go down, yours go up. You live in South Cheektowaga, you're gonna pay more. And we're gonna start looking like a place we don't want to look like. You know, I refuse to stay in this town and not be able to have my neighborhood and community looking like it should. All right, and it's time that we stepped up to the plate and made the right decision here. I'm just asking you to do the right things for the town. It's for the whole town. It's not about me. It's for the whole town. Thank you.
With that, one last offer. Any other speakers this morning on the topic? All right, and I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing and enter attorney-client privilege. Second from Councilmember Kaminsky, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the public hearing is, we're entering attorney-client privilege with no action to follow.